They are shorting more paper silver per day than the entire planet can dig out of the ground in a year. That's not trading. That's not risk management. That's a war against price discovery. And for what? To keep silver cheap, to suppress monetary revolt, and yes, to quietly support the endless churn of missiles, electronics, AI tech, and surveillance systems that now depend on silver more than ever. You want to tell me this is just coincidence? That BlackRock, which is custodian of SLV, is also knee-deep in defense contractors, ESG scores, and the reconstruction contracts for the very wars their weapons are used in? No, I'm sorry, that's not coincidence. That's a vertical monopoly on global chaos, and silver is caught right in the middle. But here's the thing, and I want you to really hear this. The rest of the world is waking up. They're standing for delivery. They're watching COMEX inventories drain. They're seeing the LBMA inventories fall to multi-decade lows. They're seeing T+1 suddenly become T+8 weeks. And they're not buying the excuse that it's all about trucking shortages. You know what that is? That's a supply problem wearing a logistics costume. That's default in slow motion. Let's talk China, the world's second largest silver producer. And they're flying around Latin America trying to scoop up doré bars and concentrates directly from junior miners, paying double what the West offers. Why? Because they see the writing on the wall. Because silver is strategic. Because the West has treated silver as an expendable tool while China sees it as an existential necessity. They're not just buying, they're cornering the market without anyone even noticing. You know who else sees it? The Canadian Parliament. That's right. Canadian lawmakers are actually discussing whether silver should be reclassified from an industrial metal to a strategic one. Think about the implications of that. A change in classification would alter mining regulations, resource allocation, even national security frameworks. And you'd better believe the moment one G7 country makes that leap, the rest follow. That's when silver leaves the too cheap to care bin and enters the too critical to ignore vault. That's when the suppressive mechanism breaks permanently. Now I know some of you watching are thinking, but Andy, we've heard this before. Silver manipulation, suppressed price, shortage. When's the breakout? And I get it. Believe me, I get the frustration. But I want to remind you of something very simple. Rigged systems work until they don't. And when they break, they don't unwind. They snap. And the snapping is coming. Look at what's happening with Bridge. Look at the Belt and Road Initiative linking 70% of global population into a trade system that settles outside the dollar. Look at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization accounting for 50% of the world's people and 35% of global GDP. These are not fringe movements. These are tectonic shifts. And they're all moving toward the same conclusion. The end of dollar settlement, the rise of multi-currency trade, and the reemergence of gold-backed asset-settled trade. So what happens when these countries, many of which are industrial and developing economies, realize that silver is gold's industrial cousin? What happens when the BRICS nations start settling not just in gold, but in silver as a Tier 2 reserve asset? What happens when supply chains are regionalized, de-dollarized, and dematerialized all at once? You get a global silver squeeze the likes of which we've never seen. And that's exactly what's starting to happen. The BRICS bloc is already laying the infrastructure. Vaults in Saudi Arabia, in Hong Kong, in Africa. A settlement system that functions like a central bank, but without the central bank. You pay in yuan, you settle in gold, and soon, mark my words, you'll settle in silver too. Because unlike gold, silver has an irreplaceable role in everything from photovoltaics to water purification to battlefield tech. It's the metal of the future that's priced like it's stuck in 1983. And here's the kicker. Even if we're wrong, even if there's no great revaluation, no hyper-deflation of fiat currencies, no BRICS replacement of the dollar, silver still wins. Why? Because it's being consumed, not just hoarded. Every solar panel, every electric vehicle, every 5G tower is burning through silver in ways that cannot be reversed. You can't recycle what's been vaporized. That makes silver a self-extinguishing asset in the best way possible. The more it's used, the scarcer it becomes. And the scarcer it becomes, the more it undermines the illusion that price equals value. We are sitting on a powder keg of mispriced utility. And when that fuse goes off, the reversion to the mean won't just be explosive, it'll be existential for every bank, ETF, and industrial player who's been playing cute with paper claims. You know, sometimes people laugh when I say silver is the most undervalued asset on the planet. But then I ask them, what other asset do you know that trades at a ratio of 80 to 1 to gold when it came out of the ground at 10 to 1 for most of human history? What other asset has thousands of years of monetary credibility, modern industrial indispensability, and current institutional disinterest? Disinterest is the key word here, because disinterest is opportunity. Because when Wall Street isn't paying attention, that's when the real money's made. The smart money, the generational wealth, and you don't need a Bloomberg terminal to see it. All you need is eyes, a historical perspective, and maybe a little intestinal fortitude. Look, the U.S. debt is north of $35 trillion. Interest on that debt is approaching $1.5 trillion annually. Entitlements are expanding. The Treasury is rolling over short-term bonds into even more short-term bonds just to keep the music playing. That's not sustainability. That's the final act of a confidence game. And in the final act of any confidence game, what matters isn't the con artist. It's the moment the audience starts walking out. That's where we are now. And when the audience walks out on the dollar, they don't go to the euro. They don't go to the yen. They go to real stuff. Gold, land, energy, and yes, silver. So where does that leave you, the viewer? It leaves you at a crossroads. You can keep believing that the price is the truth, or you can start looking at the structure beneath the price. The vaults, the delivery times, the physical shortages, the changing classifications, the rise of parallel systems. That's where the truth lives now. And let me leave you with this. When the COMEX cracks, when delivery defaults ripple through the system, when T+8 becomes T+never, it won't be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. It'll happen quietly like all great inflection points. But you'll know, you'll feel it, because the price won't be available anymore. Only the metal.